AEC Business, the construction industry's innovation and technology show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the AEC Business Podcast, the go-to spot for innovation and technology in the construction industry. This time we'll discuss augmented reality, the technology that can boost construction productivity. I'm your host, Aarni Heiskanen, and my guest is Alexander Sidorov, Chief Operating Officer at Gamma Technologies, a company that visualizes models on site. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Alexander.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I know that you've worked in corporate finance before construction. Perhaps you can provide some insight into your background for those listeners who may not be well versed in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, I come from completely different background. I worked in M&A and financial due diligence. Essentially, when one company buys another, somebody needs to help deciding, finding arguments how the price should be structured, what are the arguments to get it down or up. So it was a very, very interesting, very intense period. Yeah, but now, 3 years ago almost, I decided to make the switch and join Gamma.
Okay, so did you work in a specific sector in corporate finance?
I was privileged enough to work for a small team, which meant that we didn't have really much specification. So I've seen a lot of different things, from cryptocurrency exchange platforms to dairy factories, hotel restructurings after COVID, helicopter businesses, a lot of very interesting different things. Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting background for this sector. So, as someone who joined the industry a few years ago, what do you see as its biggest challenges?
Yeah, so coming or having seen other industries, of course, I was a little bit shocked that once you start actually diving into the construction industry, you see that margins are very, very small, even though it's a huge, huge, huge market. The volatility of profitability is very, very great. So you might have jobs on which you lose a lot of money, on others you recover it, and overall, it seems to be that people are fighting for really, really small profits, and everything is done by volume, which is amazing. But on the other side, it's a very open industry, I must say. It's everybody's ready to help. Everybody's ready to open up. But it's an industry you cannot actually grasp just by theory. So it's incredible. You talk to somebody who might have been in construction but never on a site, and it seems like they don't know exactly what you're talking about. And then you go on site, you talk to the field people who might not have pursued master's degree and whatnot, and they have actually the much better grasp and understanding of what is actually happening in the real world. And this gap, it's just huge.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right about that, and I'm happy that you have found the right way to approach this industry. Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, and it's a peculiar industry, so it takes a little bit of time of understanding it. I've been doing it for decades now, and I'm starting to understand.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Maybe another thing which is completely flabbergasting to me is that it is a very large industry in terms of number of people, but everybody's aware that over the next decade or two, half of the workforce will retire. And at the same time, there is this huge problem with rising costs already today, right? And at the same time, construction being actually at the heart of all the other industries. So our private lives, but also all the other economies, and the economies are, of course, forecast to grow, etc. So the demand keeps growing, the workforce is shrinking, and there is this gap is just becoming bigger and bigger. And everybody talks about this, and it seems like, yeah, it's a problem we are all aware of, but there's not really much happening to actually overcome this, to do something against this. So this is something which is a little bit frightening to me. At the same time, exchanging with field people, I'm just jotting down a few of the observations. We can definitely dive into some of them specifically. Another very, very interesting thing which came to mind. So while people are very ready to share most of the time when they work, there is this kind of mentality that after me, après moi la déluge. So after me, there might be a flood coming, and I don't really care. I do my job, and then I off. And if there is something going wrong, then well, that's on the next guy. So which is a little bit confrontational against the impression that everybody's actually very forthcoming and helping. And I think the last thing I want to highlight is that people are actually much more digitally advanced than many might think coming from outside. And I'm surprised that everybody starts saying, hey, construction is actually very backward, etc. Well, in average, maybe, but I guarantee I've never seen so much tech at once as on a construction site in any banking environment. For example. Yeah, people sit behind the computers, but this is not really high tech, right? But you have from reality capture, augmented reality, drones, robots, AI, everything. It's very, very advanced, and people don't really, I think, apprehend how great and exciting it is to be today in construction.
Yeah, that's good to hear. By the way, I just read that in the UK alone, in the next 5 years, there's a lack of 251,000 workers in construction. So I don't know where they will come up with that kind of amount of people, but yeah, that's really challenging. So you touched on construction technology already. How do you see it as a solution? How critical is it as a solution to these problems?
So honestly, today the people entering the job market, they never think about staying in the same job for the next 20 years. Okay. So maybe this worked a couple of decades ago, but today that's not the case. So everybody expects naturally that probably every 4, 5, 6, 7 years they will change the job, right? So it means that the commitment to a specific job might not be the same as it was at some point. So if you bring people in an environment where maybe they can grow internally, fair enough, but at the same time they're going to break their backs, they're going to have a lot of overtime, a lot of problems, maybe instability. This is not something that appears attractive. So I understand why people are choosing to maybe other career paths, just because, well, I'm not going to break my back for somebody whom I'm going to leave in a couple of years and stay with my broken back for the rest of my life, right? And technology is something which can actually alleviate many of the pain points on one side. On the other side, it can give actually the perspective that, hey, if you want to work in a technologically advanced environment, you can come here. You can play with robots. You can make a pilot, become a pilot for drones, right? And this is exciting. This is not an opportunity you get somewhere else, but somehow I haven't seen this on posters in universities or in trade schools, and we're not, right?
And especially now, everybody's talking about AI, and I think the occupations that will still be relevant will be those in the construction sector, for example. For example, in banking, in insurance, and so on, AI will do a lot of those jobs in the future.
I guarantee there are a lot of things which can be automated, of course, but I don't know whether you've seen or not this advertisement. Hey, ChatGPT built this building. It was a Belgian company last year, I think. It's brilliant. Now, of course, at some point there will be robots doing everything for us, and we will just be laying back and not doing anything, probably not working at all, because AI will have taken over all the other jobs, right? Like you have in the movie WALL-E. But it's still like 50 years down the road. So probably the next 50 years, we need still to take decisions. We need to execute something. And this is something where humans need to take the responsibility for and actually take decisions. And this is something where technology can help. So technology will not necessarily execute the work. It will enable the people to execute the work better, supervise the work. It will allow maybe even less skilled people to access certain jobs which were not possible before. Because we need this, right? You cannot wait for the skilled people to turn up if all the experienced people are retiring, not being able to pass forward their experience, and at the same time nobody wants to come to replace them, right? So you need to find another solution. And what I actually see exchanging with a lot of different decision takers in companies, in big construction companies, you have this huge gap between the little home builders, most of the time, who are, let's say, within an environment where even BIM is not really implemented, where technology is a nice to have, but not a must have, because it's all about bricklaying and being on time and being efficient with manual labor. But once you start going into bigger projects, which are actually now dominating most of the construction sectors in most industries, right? You see that those who are actually implementing technology, they're winning. And implementing not in a sense of, hey, they're trying the newest things out. Trying out is not something which is, let's say, exceptional. Many companies have innovation departments, but you clearly see people who have this change mentality adopted across the whole processes. And this is what makes a difference. So if people are implementing different technologies within the companies and following up on this and making sure that everybody, not just the innovation department, uses it, then you see a big gap. And it's really a vicious circle, essentially, because if you have the possibility to look for new technology, you implement this, you make things more efficient, so you free up more resources to be actually able to test new technology, so you can implement it and you can free up resources, etc., etc. So the gap between those who are actively doing this and those who are just tipping their toes into the waters, I think in 10, 15 years, there will be huge gap, which will be impossible to bridge.
Yeah. Well, your company specializes in one kind of technology, augmented reality. It is not yet mainstream, I would say, but why would companies have to, or why should they consider it right now?
Yeah. Imagine you're buying something from IKEA, and you're coming home, you have your box of pieces, you take out the plan, and you religiously follow this plan to the letter, and still you might end up with 2-3 spare screws, right? When you do construction, you have this huge building, okay, or huge project, and you have 20, 30, 50 different plans, drawings, okay? Nobody is going to take all of those 50 drawings at the same time, memorize them, and then trying to combine them in their heads. So what people have is they have 2D simplifications of what they're supposed to do. So we have this nice 3D planned out model. Then they have this 2D simplification. They look at the simplification and they need to imagine how the designer thought about this in 3D to be able to do this in 3D. That sounds like a lot of extra steps, which are not necessarily not needed in the 21st century, right? So that's why augmented reality is actually a logical next step. I mean, we went from paper to digital on tablets, but still 2D plans. Now we are going back to the roots, bringing again the 3D environment within the construction space, so we can actually visualize things around us and overlays of a real structure, and then have a little bit like a side view into the future to see, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do, or that's how things are intended to be, but this will not work. It's actually very interesting. I had a discussion with a client last week where the site super said, look, I'm going to use this to explain to the people in the office why what they intend to do does not work in the real life. We have still this gap between people, design people frequently doing models to be clash-free, not necessarily constructible, because this takes field experience, which many of them don't have. At the same time, the people in the field, they very frequently don't really believe in the models, which means that very frequently, unfortunately, we see this process running in parallel, right? So it starts with a 3D model. People get extracts from this as a 2D drawing. They start building based on this. They make deviations. They make some annotations. They give this to somebody, and then this lives on as a legacy within this 2D drawing. And then the model has a separate life, and this has a separate life. And hopefully, in the end, there is a reality capture thing. The office people do an as-built model, and then everything is done, right? But this is not the way how we are supposed to work if you want to avoid rework. Oh, by the way, yes, another thing which was surprising to me. 3% margins, right, on average in the whole industry, but yet 9 to 15, depending on which study you consider, percent of rework. So it's money we toss in the bin just for nothing because we didn't build something properly the first time. And augmented reality helps with this. So we do see it entering all parts of our lives, right? We see it in Google Street View that now you can have the same walking in live view. It's called Street View. That you see walking in the street, you can see in augmented reality where the arrows are, where you need to go, right? And this is just natural that it will also enter the construction site at some point, and everybody understands it. So augmented reality, I would say, it's not a novelty anymore, especially since people have already tablets on site, and for example, our solution runs on tablets, so it's not even a big threshold. So instead of just looking at an iPad like this, they can now just hold it in front of them and look around and see things around them. It takes a little bit getting used to work again in 3D instead of 2D because people have the experience of working with 2D, of course, with drawings. And they don't really feel that they are not working on the same thing as is supposed to happen later on, right? So they make their own projections in their heads, their imagination. They make some annotations. They build what they built, and then in the end, there is no comparison between what was supposed to be or not. So in the end, it seems fine, right? And if the people in the office they correct the model for as built, why bothering, right? But now this gives actually them a constant visual clue of what might be going differently than expected. And this is a huge benefit because now you can, before things happen, you can see, wait a minute, we are supposed to have a pipe here, but we don't have an opening. So this is a problem. Oh, hey, these H-beams are maybe turned a little bit. So we will not going to be able to put them as we ordered them. So there's a whole preventive work which is made possible through augmented reality, which people need just to embrace. But to be the most beneficial, people need to have also the experience to understand, okay, yes, if I'm doing this, but then I won't be able to do this. And plans cannot give this because we have all flawed imagination in our head. We are too optimistic. Everything seems to fit when you look at the plan.
Yeah, ideally, yes. Yeah, very good point that actually you have to decode the 2D drawing in your head into 3D before you can. Yeah, that's a very good point.
And you know what is funny? The more experienced somebody is, the bigger the chance that they have overseen something or overlooked something. It's there is Daniel Kahneman who got the Nobel Prize in behavioral economics, and he is preaching that we have two modi in our head, is thinking fast and slow, and the fast brain wants just to take clues and just rules of thumb and make decisions, and the slow one takes time and processing. So the more the easier the problem appears to you, the bigger the chance that you will just turn on this quick mind without actually going into the details. And this is what leads to mistakes. So the more experience you have, the bigger the chance that you just overflow quickly the plan and say, yeah, it's like this, and you don't really pay attention to details. And this is a problem. But if you see everything around you, well, there's no excuse.
Yeah, I can attest to that phenomenon. Yes. So you already said that you can use tablets on site to overlay the model. One thing that everybody's worried or concerned about AR solutions is that how do they align with reality? Is there some secret sauce that you have?
Yes, our secret sauce is managing expectations and talking to customers. It needs to be very clear from the very beginning. Augmented reality solutions are not surveying solutions. So they're indicative, right? And we still need our natural intelligence to understand whether things are wrong or not. So what is important is that when a model appears around you and you see that there are two elements which are aligned and one element which is not aligned with the reality, then probably it's an indication that either the model is not what it's supposed to be or the reality. It will not solve the problem for you. So you need still your possibility to your decision making to go there and say, okay, this is something which is crucial. We need to get to the bottom of this, or yeah, we just randomly put it here, but nobody cares, so we just let it slide like this. right? What is important though is this is something anybody experienced on site can do easily, and this is what they're doing all the time, constantly, even with drawings. But what they need to be able to do is to say, okay, now I see that, for example, there is a drift with the model. So what do? I'm somewhere new. You just need to be able to realign. You need to be able, because you don't know exactly where you're going today on the site, you need to be able to put your model wherever you want. And after having talked with customers and understanding that our key target users are not the innovation people in the office who are very tech savvy, who see thousands of devices per year, right? But the field people, they don't have time. They want the tech to work. They don't want any setup. We conceived our solution in a way that you can just select a place or a corner on the floor plan, say I'm here, and just with 2 clicks position the model there. And it doesn't matter you have a wall there or not. You can position on grid lines. You can position on any other element. We will actually release also next week QR code based positioning. Now, QR codes have been around for quite some time, and we were vehemently against them since forever. Because it takes time to set them up, right? It takes time to place them in the model, to have somebody going on site, probably a surveyor, trying to properly position them exactly in the right spot, and it's difficult, right? But we understand that in some occasions people just might not know where they are exactly on site if looking on the floor plan, right? There might be somebody who comes to the site just once a month, and the site evolves, and they're just lost. So they need something to be able to work quickly with Gamma AR, even in these occasions. Or the site might be just huge. Last week I was at an oil refinery. It's a huge place. It's very easy to get lost there, right? So QR codes make sense for some setups. And we, even in this case, we tried still to get this mind, okay, field people come on site, they need to put the QR codes. How do they do this? The way, for example, we came up with this new solution is that you can lock the position of the QR code while you're on the field. So the idea is you print a bunch of QR codes, you just go on site, you start visualizing the model, and where you want, you just put QR codes randomly, and you just lock their position. And then the next time you can use them to easily visualize the model. So still, even if you have kind of setup in this case, we still keep in mind that field people don't want extra work. They want just to go and bam, 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 do their things. Okay, they don't have time on site, and we understand this. So we try to accommodate. And maybe even more importantly, we don't try to position ourselves as a solution which replaces existing workflows. We know that it's tough to implement new technology on site. It's tough to get everybody together to learn new processes, and it's even more difficult to make them execute those processes all the time. So if there will be a new solution coming in, trying to give them something new, it will be a mess. So our philosophy from the very beginning was, okay, we are very good in what we do. This is visualization of the BIM models on site. We do have the capability for some field management solutions, but we have them to be able to integrate with others. So to push our information back to Autodesk solutions, Procore solutions, Revit to BIM Collab and Think Project. In the end, what is important is that people have this visualization on site. They can leverage this information, for example, for taking issues, and then use their established workflows to keep working on them.
Okay, yeah, very good. I was just going to ask about these integrations, but you answered already. By the way, what kind of models do you accept or support? Are they IFC or native?
Yeah, so yes, we do support both closed BIM and open BIM. So again, with the spirit that every project might be set up differently, we need to be flexible. So yes, you can upload IFCs, you can upload Revit models, Navisworks. In the end, what is important is that this model is fairly good structured, and we do see a huge improvements over the last decade. So if you see models which were uploaded even 5 years ago in some countries, even claiming to be very advanced in terms of BIM, there were still a lot of best practices missing, let's say, but the models become very clean. So it seems like the industry leaders, at least, they embrace this very tough.
Very good to hear. Well, imagine somebody now taking Gamma AR first time on the site. what kind of concerns might they have, and how do you deal with those concerns?
So I think a very important point in the beginning is understanding what the tool does and what it does not. So what it does not is easier to explain comparing to others, things like reality capture. Reality capture is amazing. You go on site, you get the information, you bring it back to the office. You want it to be very precise. You want to be very, very accurate so that you can then adjust your model to be as built. It is different from total stations. Total stations, which you need on site to be very, very precise, to build very, very precisely. So you need a surveyor to set it up, etc. Augmented reality is a tool which should be quick to use. It's essentially replacing you taking a plan, having a look at it. Yeah, that's what we're supposed to do, and then putting it away. So it needs to be very quick, but you need to understand that, okay, like your imagination, it might be flawed sometimes, and the flaws might be there for some specific reason. It might be because the design team has another imagination, and you are just not really thinking about the same thing, or maybe because there is a deviation which needs to happen, and the design team didn't do it yet, for example. Or you start walking and you develop drift, and depending on what you want to do, in the end, you don't really care, for example, about some inaccuracies, right? So if you want to validate that you have a pipe, you have a specific opening somewhere, or you didn't forget a bolt somewhere, well, it's fine. If they are a few centimeters off, you don't really care. We have a lot of people who focus very much in the beginning on the accuracy. And this is the first question: how accurate is your solution? Well, our solution is as accurate as you position this in the beginning. So if you anchor it good, if you have a device with LiDAR and you walk around, it's pretty stable, so you can have a look at things. But then the same people I meet them maybe 2-3 months later, and they just randomly position. It's already off from the very beginning. They say, yeah, I don't care. I just want to see this and this. Is it supposed to go in this way or this way?
Okay.
So what we see is that there are different solutions or different tools for different tasks. And like trying to gauge whether you need to hammer or a screwdriver is a very strange question, because in the end you need both, because both of them have very specific tasks. So once people embrace what are the tasks which they can do with augmented reality, which is conceptually visualizing what is supposed to happen, validating things, doing QA, QC, right? Following up on issues and seeing and comparing reality against design. This is what it does. It does not measure, even though, yes, we do have the possibility to measure. It is not supposed to be something which is capturing the reality like reality capture does, right? Because it's not the same purpose. But once people understand the purpose, then I think it's really easy. So typically this happens before they go on site. And once they go on site, there's just the aha effect and everybody wants it.
Yeah. So what sets you apart is it the focus that you have, that you'd focus on one thing and do it perfectly?
I will say yes. We do have this combination of, okay, it's simple to position, because anchoring is indeed a very important task. And I mean, there might be different approaches. I know a company, they place beacons. They want to be very, very exact, right? It comes at a certain cost. And depending on what exactly you want to do, maybe it's not really justifying the cost, because you really just want a quick look, right? And this precision might not be relevant here, because it will not be the same precision as you would have measuring things like a surveyor would, right? You don't have the tools for 50K or something else. So this is something which is important. Another part which is important is the same philosophy of not having to set up anything on site. We do try to adapt as much as possible for the office as well. So we don't want to overburden the office people neither. It means that we need to be able to load huge models. So we have clients who have, as I mentioned, oil refineries, nuclear reactors, pharmaceutical plants. They're just MEP all over. They are just crazily huge. But we have a dynamic loading mechanism. It means that as you move along, things appear around you, and they're set up in a way that we can handle almost all models. So very rarely do we have any occasion where there is something just very, very huge which needs to be pre-cut. I think this is a game changer, because if you need to pre-cut it, probably it's just because it's a project which is going over like 5 years, and you're anyway going to work the next 2 years just on one little piece of it. So this is an important part. And then, yes, again, we don't really try to compete with solutions which are already on the side. We try to be friends with them, we complement them.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I'm sure that you have success stories on your website that our listeners can read and learn more about what kind of results your customers have gotten. But can you highlight any special successes that your customers have experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that it's important to understand AR has, I would say, two main advantages. On one side, it's making a lot of processes much quicker. So if you do QA/QC, we have statistics from customers; they are 75 to 80% quicker, which does not mean that they save 6 hours every day or more, depending on how long their work days are, right? Which means that if they will be doing this for 2 hours normally, now they're able to do this in half an hour and dedicate the 1.5 hour they gained maybe on some potential issues they have identified. So many processes are quicker, but the biggest benefit is, of course, in preventing mistakes. There it's a little bit more difficult to measure the impact. It's like an insurance. How do you measure the benefit of your insurance? Well, as long as you don't have an accident, you don't really know. But if you have one, well, you don't know how much you will pay anyway, right? But it's the same here. So preventing a mistake is difficult to measure because you prevent it, right? It didn't happen. But at the same time, of course, this is the metric which customers try to measure the most. We do have a few more or less long-term studies. So we have a customer, for example, they rolled out Gamma on 80 residential projects, so they're not very complex. They're very quick, but still their teams with just a few people on site, they save around 1,500 euros per week, just finding one or two big mistakes. If you go into more complex structures, every mistake you anticipate is thousands and thousands. So I think yes, the biggest I think success stories is, for me, one of our German customers, crazily efficient. I mean, they do high rises in an average of 6 months, which is crazy, and still they can improve their times significantly with Gamma. So this was very nice to hear. And I think the biggest success is just customers coming back and asking for more users because they feel the value. At some point, it should be just a norm in the construction industry. So let's work on it.
Yeah. So our title about boosting productivity is actually happening. Yeah. So you already touched on the future. Next week, was it? You're introducing these QR codes, but what's in the future for your company in general?
Well, we are currently we have customers who are operating in over 20 countries. We do have a lot of different projects. I think paying customers, over 2,000 projects. I don't know how many projects there are for people who are just trying us. So it's a lot of things, and there are a lot of different setups, a lot of different processes which we need to consider. Of course, at the same time, we do keep an eye on all the hardware which is out there. I mean, there's definitely an added value to having your hands free when you work. So helmets and goggles will be at some point the future. There will be definitely a blend with AI-supported solutions. I mean, at the moment, for example, our solution works offline. So once you have your model uploaded, you can just go on site, and well, if you're in a basement, you will never have receptions anyway, right? It's working. So it's important to work. But I can conceive that at some point we will have instant connection everywhere very quickly, which will make it possible to bring much more sophisticated analytical tools also on site, which will drive the feedback loop between the design and the field team in much more quicker ways. So probably this is a big area which we will be looking into, but it's still a long way to go. Let's first make sure that people are actually embracing this on the devices they have already.
Yeah, very good. So finally, how can our listeners find more information and start using Gamma AR?
Yeah, so you can definitely add me on LinkedIn, follow the company on LinkedIn, but also Gamma AR, you see it here, right? Just find it online. There is a free trial, so you download the app, and if you have a model, you just upload and off you go. And we are always happy for feedback. I think it's a very important a word from all the software providers out there. Don't be shy on providing feedback. we are not offended if people don't like something. This makes us think. On the other side, we're always happy to hear some praise, of course, which comes normally along with purchasing. We will never evolve in the way you want it if nobody gives feedback. So we are very eager to listen, and we are happy to have feedback.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, Alexander, thanks for being here today, and I look forward to seeing your future achievements.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. Subscribe to this podcast and visit aec-business.com, the award-winning blog, for more news and stories.